Welcome everyone to this session on global civilian intervention to colonial occupation to talk about the future of unarmed civilian protection in Palestine and Western Sahara, two locations out of many in the world today that are experiencing deep crisis and campaigns of ethnic cleansing. My name is Sami Awad. I am joining you from Bethlehem, Palestine, and serve as co-director to Nonviolence International with Michael Beer. To share a little bit, Nonviolence International is a backbone organization for the global nonviolent community. We provide fiscal sponsorship and training, and we spread knowledge and stories of nonviolent movements that give all of us hope in difficult times. In short, we, with you, are reshaping what we view as possible. I'm so happy to see so many different faces from around the world who are showing an interest in nonviolence and in Palestine and in Western Sahara. Tonight, we have 6 wonderful, and I would even say powerful speakers who are leaders in the field that we are talking about. Our webinar will last about 75 minutes, and a recording will be made available on our Nonviolence YouTube channel and our website. I would like to start immediately jumping into it with my dear friend and mentor, Mel Benken. Mel is the co-founder of the Nonviolence Peace Force and is a world leader in unarmed civilian protection and the initiator of the Unarmed Civilian Protection in Palestine project. I just want to share that I'm not going to read the whole bio of every speaker. That will take all the time, but every time I mention a speaker, their bio will be available in the chat for you to read, as well as links to the different organizations and networks that they represent. So I invite you just to open all the tabs of all the links and then take your time to view them later. Emil, we are talking about unarmed civilian protection. I would like to ask you just to give us a general overview of what UCP, unarmed civilian protection, is, and why is it important to engage in UCP in difficult times and in difficult places?
Well, thank you, Sammy, and thank you, everyone. I see so many friends who are here today and so many people who have already in many different circumstances taken part in unarmed civilian protection. I think it's especially significant, if not prophetic, that we're meeting today when in the last 24 hours, some very significant things have taken place with the United Nations Security Council voting down the resolution for a ceasefire. It lost 14-1, meaning 14 votes in favor, and the United States vetoing the resolution for a ceasefire. Then a little later, the Senate voted down the efforts to stop offensive weapons from flowing from the United States to Israel. And then just a few hours ago, the International Criminal Court issuing arrest warrants for Mr. Netanyahu and Mr. Gallant. So indeed, I think that we are at a point, as you said, Sammy, of continuing to reshape what is possible. Unarmed civilian protection simply means well-trained, disciplined civilians working together with other civilians to provide protection to them while they are under threat because of violent conflict. Key elements in this are nonviolence and what we refer to as the primacy of local actors, working together with the people who are directly affected, and they are calling the shots in terms of what is needed and how it is done. There are now at least 60 organizations in the world who are providing unarmed civilian protection in at least 30 areas of conflict. And that's, I say, it's the number that we know of, because there's more of that, more than that. These organizations, some of them are large, like Peace Brigades International and Nonviolent Peace Force. And some of them are community-based, like Mama Bear in Winnipeg, Canada, that are Indigenous women protecting Indigenous women who come into the city. But these practices are being shown to work and proven both quantitatively and qualitatively in many areas of violent conflict, including in Palestine, where I see Daniel and others who have been working on providing UCP in the West Bank, and the assessment team for UCP in Palestine identified that there's at least 22 organizations that are doing some form of UCP in Palestine right now.
Can you share a little bit more about UCP in Palestine as this initiative that you have started and launched, and where is it now? How are things moving in it?
The UCP in Palestine project did an assessment, a team of 2 internationals and 2 people from Palestine, including Sammy, who in July looked at what was needed and how it might be applied in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. They also interviewed people in Gaza looking at what were the possibilities there. And they came up with 2 specific recommendations. First of all, to deploy a mission of at least 100 highly skilled, experienced, unarmed civilian personnel on the ground to the West Bank. And when the situation allows, to extend that mission into the Gaza Strip. Now, that relates to, there are now hundreds and hundreds of people with experience who have worked in violent conflict. Some people like Shores, who are on this call, are among us, who have dealt with violent actors, whether they be governments or non-government actors, who have worked with communities in the face of violence. And people are out there, and they are expressing an interest to do this work and to come on a longer term basis. We're looking for people to work for at least a year, because one of the things that we found in unarmed civilian protection is it works most effectively based upon longer term relationships. One of the ways that we are able to protect is based upon relationships. So that's the first goal. And we're working on that in a variety of ways, both at the UN to try to get their support in entry into Palestine, and also pushing the US government to put pressure on Israel to allow us to enter. We are also looking at other more creative ways to be able to get into the country that would rely upon let's say, creative nonviolence. The second recommendation that came from the assessment team was to provide support to existing UCP organizations that are presently working there to enhance their effectiveness. And the requests that the team heard most often were enhanced training, support around trauma issues, and some kind of platform for coordination. And so that particular recommendation is being implemented right now. We have a person who is working now, who is from the West Bank, who is starting to meet with groups and to discover what kind of training is required, what people are wanting. And they are then working with a team of people from a variety of unarmed civilian protection groups who are pooling their training materials and then trying to tailor it to what people are asking for.
Great, thank you, Mel. We'll get back to you with questions towards the end, I'm sure. And next, I want to invite my dear brother and colleague in activism, Mahmoud Zawahiri. Mahmoud Zawahiri is a Palestinian nonviolent activist, a farmer, and an academic, and one of the co-founders of the Popular Struggle Coordinating Committee. Mahmoud and I have been beaten up and detained by Israeli army and settlers many, many times throughout our joint activist work and resistance. So good to see you, Mahmoud. And Mahmoud, I would like to invite you to talk about the current situation in the West Bank. It's a continuously changing, volatile situation. But what is the situation today in the West Bank, especially in Area C, where you live and where you come from?
Thank you very much, Sami. Thank you all for attending and for organizing this amazing venue for us to come together and share ideas about further steps, as Mel was saying. Uh, Actually, one of the most, let's say, dramatic thing is how things are changing in Palestine and how it has been changed since Trump was in power in previously and now. If we take this as a period, how things changed in Palestine, we will see dramatic change in relation to the safety and security of the Palestinian civilians living in the West Bank, at least where I am living, apart from what is happening in Gaza and now in Lebanon. But to summarize it in area C, if we go from the beginning of 2023, when the new Israeli government came in power, and after October 7th, these are dramatic changes that impacting the safety and the existence of the Palestinians living mainly in Area C, and it has created a new West Bank, the newest bank that impact each individual Palestinian, in the ones who are living on the front line facing the settler soldiers who turned soldiers after October 7, with full impunity and zero accountability of all the crimes that they are conducting against the Palestinians, which we noticed how the violations of the rights of the Palestinians have increased exponentially after October 7th. And we noticed that many Palestinians have been killed by settlers, not only by the army, and we see how the settlers become with the uniform and with the guns. And in this way, when we connect that with the UCP issue, how the space of UCPs has shrinked after October 7, and we found ourselves alone on the ground, and we noticed that the access and movement in the West Bank has limited to the point now we are unable to move, we are unable to reach our fields, we are unable to graze our sheep, we are unable to do anything. And while the settlers are moving freely and kicking Palestinians, driving them out from their communities, in which more than 18 Palestinian communities have been displaced, forcibly displaced, and the policy of ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from Area C has become offered to everyone. So October 7th showed what are the hidden agendas of the Israeli government in the West Bank. And I am telling you that the outcome of the new Middle East will be concentrated on the hills of the West Bank, in a way that the highest price will be paid in the West Bank, because settlers are openly calling, and when I am talking about settlers, we are talking about the people who are in power in Israel, like Ben Gvir and Smotrich, who are the main pillars of the Netanyahu government, who are openly calling us to leave the West Bank, who are openly drawing the maps for us, the distance from Ramallah to Amman, the distance from Hebron to the city against it in Jordan, so that smoothly move. We will offer you the passes, just leave the country. That's what they want from us. So they draw the map on the ground, and now it is the golden opportunity after Trump become the president of the US, in a way that there will be no eviction of settlers. So there's a new West Bank. So to summarize, the new geography and the new policies in the West Bank, it created a de facto that impacted the Palestinians fully and have zero impact on the settlers in relation to their movements and so on. We are talking about more than 700 gates and checkpoints in which Palestinians are living in these concentration areas that we are under curfew when settlers are moving on the highways. And also, but there is the resilience of the Palestinians and the sumud of the Palestinians in front of that. And we saw that there is a very huge willing and motivation for international youth to come to Palestine as UCP. They brought a model that we can bring to international nonviolence and the coalition of the UCP, in a way how we are going to prepare these people who are willing and motivated to come to Palestine for their protective presence with the Palestinians, in a way that they will have a constructive presence and inhibit the settler attacks and the army attacks. This is there is a huge motivation, especially in the last campaign that we are organizing, Defend Palestine Faz'a, in which we received more than 200 volunteers so far, and one of them were shot. She was volunteering with ISM, Aishin, that was shot and killed by an Israeli sniper while she was just standing under the olive tree. This action reminds us with the flotilla in the sea when the Israelis killed 10 volunteers coming there, that does not demotivate people. In contrary, it mobilized more and more people to come to Palestine. The context is important, that must be taken into consideration in this case. The challenges UCP are facing in order to come to Palestine is very crucial. The number of UCP volunteers is crucial in order to enhance the protection of the Palestinian civilians. And also here, one important thing is about how we are going to build a new model in a way that the context of Palestine, it's as you were saying, Mel, that you are pushing Israel in order through the United Nations that there will be a recognition for UCPs to come in Palestine. The model now, we know that the challenges is huge. We know that the people are deported now because of their involvement with the UCP issues in Palestine. But at the same time, what the model we are bringing now is the grassroots UCP, is the community people, whether they are from organizations or movements or individuals, coming to participate in the UCP actions in Palestine. One important thing coming out from chatting with the volunteers who are coming, they are motivated to stay in Palestine. They are looking for a safe space in order to have the freedom of expression. They lack the freedom of expression back home in Europe, in America. The freedom of expression is in Palestine. The violence is in Palestine, but the freedom of expression is in Palestine. That there they do something. And this came to them as a result of what has happened to the youth and the student movements in the US and beyond, when they saw the state repression against the encampments, against when they tried to raise their voices against the policy of the states and against the genocide in Gaza. So from all of these, what we are going to take away, that there is hope, that we, as Sami was saying, we are together. we are coming here as nonviolent activists, as nonviolent UCPs, in order to bring a change and a protection to the civilians who are living there. I am conducting a research about unarmed civil protection, and there will be a book with open access coming soon in next year. And it's all coming about our daily life with the Palestinians. The message from the Palestinian communities that are on the front line of defending the land in Area C is, please do not leave us alone. We know that you are here not to conduct any violence. We are here as a human together. When you are with us, we are stronger. And the
Thank you.
same message is coming from the internationals who are there. Without the support of the Palestinians, we are impactless. So let's maintain these two ways of support from the locals and from the UCPs in order to enhance the protection of the Palestinian civilians in such critical time.
Thank you, Mahmoud. Thank you for this. And yeah, thank you for the energy and for the clarity that you bring the issues up. And all of what you mentioned actually leads me to Huwaida, to add more meat to what you talked about. As many of you know Huwaida Arraf, and many of you know her, and many of you respect her. Huwaida Arraf is a Palestinian American activist and co-founder of the International Solidarity Movement and the Freedom Flotilla. Huwaida, I want to ask you to build on what Mahmoud was saying about the challenges and the opportunities that are facing internationals to enter Palestine, to enter Area C, to mobilize themselves. You have been working on this for decades, and if you could share just a little bit more on what are the more recent challenges that are facing internationals entering the occupied territories. Huwaida? Is she here? I saw her earlier.
Yeah, she's on mute.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Sorry. I started by thanking Nonviolence International for hosting this and to everyone for being here. And I wanted to actually start with a grim realization for me. You know, when we started the International Solidarity Movement back in 2001, it was based on this idea that having internationals join Palestinians in their protests, in their popular resistance, can help lessen the lethal force used against Palestinians, because Israel did not want to really kill internationals, whereas there's no accountability. They don't care, unfortunately, about killing Palestinians. And what we have seen is it has reached a level of so much impunity time after time given to Israel. And over the years, it has just kept pushing, right? It just kept pushing the boundaries of what it can do, and then finding out that it wasn't going to be held accountable. And therefore, we got to a situation where it felt perfectly comfortable carrying out a genocide, not only at the top levels, but even their individual soldiers feel untouchable. And so this idea of, and through the years, with the killing of our colleagues, Rachel Corrie and Tom Herndal, we had Aisha Noor just a couple of months ago, the killing of our colleagues on the flotilla, still no accountability for Israel. So again, that has pushed the lines and led us to where we are today. And so it's a little bit of a different consideration than we had back when we founded the International Solidarity Movement. But it's not totally gone. It's not totally eradicated. And certainly one of the pillars of the International Solidarity Movement is not only to help provide kind of accompaniment, protection, and to be able to report on what's happening, but also to provide what Mahmoud ended with. What Palestinians are calling for is this feeling of international solidarity, that they're not alone, because the occupation is just so kind of overwhelming in their control of people's everyday lives, and Palestinians basically see that the world doesn't care. Of course, I don't know if you touched on this. We had an important development this morning with the International Criminal Court issuing arrest warrants, finally, for Netanyahu and Gallant. Hopefully, this is just the beginning. But in terms of what our challenges and opportunities are, yes, over the past few weeks, we have, well, let me go back a little bit and to say for the last year, we have had a little bit of difficulty maintaining a huge presence or a large enough presence in Palestine because we don't want to commit to more areas than we can actually stay in. Because if internationals are in one area and then they leave, the Israeli military or settlers will take it out on the community. So ISM specifically, I'm speaking of ISM, made the calculation and the decision that if we're going to go to a place, we need to be able to commit to a long-term presence in that place so that we don't leave, go somewhere else, and then the military takes it out on the community for hosting us. So we have mainly been keeping a presence in Masafer Yatta, but with the launch of Feza and Defend Palestine and getting the numbers up a little bit, I think that it increases the ability to extend to different places. However, we have had a number of deportations in the past just few weeks alone. And there's a pretty detailed article that came out, I think in Haaretz, about kind of Israel's war on internationals that are coming to stand in solidarity with Palestinians. We don't give in to that. We can't give in to that. There are still ways to get in. Actually, a longtime activist just got in last week, and so it still is possible. It still is very much needed. When people, it's what we've always been doing. When people are denied entry or deported, they need to make it as big of a deal as possible in their home countries about it. With the U.S. specifically, we have. Last year, unfortunately, this visa waiver program went into effect that is supposed to be kind of reciprocal. The U.S. allows Israel to come in without a visa and expect certain treatment, and American citizens should be able to expect the same kind of treatment in Israel. And so it's important that these things are reported when people are deported, when people are attacked, when people are not let in, so that we have a record of this, so that it is taken to the administration, to the government, to challenge Israel's continuance to maintain its status in the visa waiver program. And then we do have, so just to finish up that part, there are still challenges of getting in, but that shouldn't deter anyone. Those challenges have always been there. Arrests are a little bit easier now from what we can tell. It's like you don't even have to, before you're arrested for, Israel says this is a closed military zone, get out. It arrests a lot of people to break up a protest. The last few weeks, arrests have been just for accompanying farmers to their farmland. You are stopped and questioned by soldiers, then you're taken in, and you are accused of being in Israel illegally, or whatever they want to throw at you. Again, important to document it here in the United States with your member of Congress. You can let me know specifically, because I am collecting this and sharing with the attorneys who are challenging the visa waiver program, as well as the Palestinian advocacy organizations here. And advocacy hasn't been easy over the past year, as I think Mahmoud mentioned. Unfortunately, there has been a crackdown, as there's always been, but increasing. We have Palestine Legal in the United States, which is an organization that defends people who are persecuted or face repercussions for standing up for Palestinian human rights. And usually they get a couple hundred cases a year. Over the past, since October 7th, they're about at 2,500 cases of people of organizations that have been shut down, people who have lost opportunity, lost jobs, been disciplined by their schools, etc. And it probably is only going to get worse with Trump, the new administration coming in. Again, you're faced with hardships, but you don't have we don't have another choice. I mean, giving up is giving in to this injustice, which we won't do. So I'm sure many of you are involved in organizations that are thinking about now, how do we prepare to defend each other and protect each other and make sure that we can continue advocating for Palestine, even with this new administration that's coming in. We have still Palestine Legal, which is overwhelmed, but you also have hundreds and hundreds of attorneys around the country that have volunteered their services to also represent people. So we're not going to give up that fight. Please don't let that deter you. And the more Israel kind of uses these threats of, not just Israel, obviously, Zionists, of anti-Semitism, it loses kind of all value. And I have seen more and more people questioning that, which is also a good thing. It all contributes to the education. And one of the biggest things I think I would encourage people to continue doing is taking the information that we gather in Palestine. And internationals, if I didn't mention it, are important, of course, for the morale of the people, of course, to try to protective accompaniment and to document. And that documentation is really important. You take it back to the United States or wherever you're from to help you advocate, but also we see different attorneys in various countries, including here in the United States, trying to use a lot of that information to pursue different legal challenges to what Israel is doing. And so we need also that documentation. And what can I say except that we keep going. Last thing, as I know many of my friends in occupied Palestine, whether it being in the West Bank, Gaza, and even in 48, expect things to get, unfortunately, a lot worse before they get better. But what we can do here is continue to maintain our conviction that we must act. If no one else is going to do it, if we're not going to do it, keep up the boycott, divestment, sanctions efforts, because that is really going to put the pressure needed. We know that the United States is going to keep protecting Israel at every turn, but when U.S. companies start feeling the economic stress of what it's doing, as Israeli companies keep doing it, we further kind of isolate and start to really exact a cost for what is happening. So we are on the right track. It's not going to get easier, but we must keep on.
Thank you, Huwaida. As soon as I saw that article from Haaretz on the Israeli government crackdown, immediately the quote from Gandhi, which is first they ignore you, then they ridicule you, then they fight you, and then you win. Keep in mind. So for me, it's been very clear that there has been an effect of international presence here, and it is triggering the Israeli to pull the triggers, the Israeli government, military, and settlers to respond, because that presence has been powerful. And I fully agree and second what you said, that we need this to increase more and more and more locally in the occupied territories and also internationally in the United States as well. So thank you for your words and for your comments for that. As Mel said when we first opened, UCP is an international movement of internationals entering different areas around the world. I think you mentioned there's over 30 conflict zones now where international presence is present. And as we are maybe more aware of what is happening in Palestine, for us as the global community committed to nonviolence, we need to also highlight other areas in the world where there is conflict, there is ethnic cleansing, there is violence, there is occupation, there is injustice facing the local communities there. I hope all of you, if not many of you, know and have read and have followed the situation in Western Sahara. As Nonviolence International, we have been also, as much as we can, involved in the work there in supporting the liberation movement in Western Sahara. And for us, we will begin to highlight more of these international nonviolent activist campaigns that are happening around the world. This is part of our mission and part of what we seek together with you as community. And so it is an honor for us to have with us today Khatari Al-Bailal. Khatari, you are with us.
Hello, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you for joining us. Khatari, he is a dedicated human rights defender from Western Sahara, and the director of the Sahrawi Center for Media and Communication in La Ayoun. Khatari, thank you for joining us. It's an honor to have you with us. And I would love to hear from you to share with us about the situation in Western Sahara and what is your invitation for the global community?
Yes, thank you. I just want to say that on behalf of the Sahrawi people, all the support and solidarity with the the people of Palestine, occupied Palestine. And thank you for organizing this webinar. And thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Sahrawi people and share the urgent need for international solidarity with those living under occupation in Western Sahara. Today, I want to reflect not only on the courage of individuals like Sultana Khaya, but also on the vibrant, diverse movements within Western Sahara that are driving our struggle for the women's movement, the youth movement, the environmental movement, and the human rights movement. Western Sahara remains Africa's last colony occupied by Morocco in a violation of international law and the Sahrawi people right to self-determination. In the face of this, our people resist through a peaceful but powerful means, building a grassroots movement for liberation and justice. The women's movement in Western Sahara stand at the forefront of this struggle. Sahrawi women like Sultana Khaya embody the resilience of our people, leading protests, organizing communities, and confronting oppression with unmatched courage beyond individuals. Sahrawi women collectively challenge both occupation and gender inequality, creating a powerful force for change. They demand not only freedom from occupation, but also equality and dignity in our society. Our youth movement is equally vital. Young Sahrawi are using creativity, technology, and activism to keep the world informed about life under occupation through art, social media, and nonviolent resistance. They refuse to let the occupation suppress their identity and aspiration. This generation carries the weight of our struggle while imagining a future of peace and independence. Another critical and often overlooked movement is the environmental movement. Western Sahara natural resource, its phosphate, fisheries, and winds are exploited by occupying authorities without the consent of the Sahrawi people. Activists are working to expose the exploitation, which not only denies us our rightful wealth, but also endanger the fragile ecosystem of our desert homeland. Their efforts remind us that the struggle for self-determination is also a fight for environmental justice. Finally, the human rights movement continues to document and resist the systematic abuses faced by Sahrawis. Arbitrary arrest, enforced disappearance, torture, and silencing of activists are daily realities in occupied Western Sahara. Human rights defenders work tirelessly, often the great personal risk, to ensure that those violations are not forgotten or ignored by the international community. Each of those movements, women's, youth, environmentals, and human rights, represent a pillar of our resistance. They share a common goal, free and justice Western Sahara, where the Sahrawi people can live with dignity, but their effort cannot succeed in isolation. This is where international solidarity becomes critical. By standing with us, you amplify our voices and shield us from the suppression that seek to silence us, when activists, journalists, and organizations engage with those movements, whether by visiting the occupied territories, sharing our stories, or advocating on the global stage. They help sustain our resistance and build momentum for change. Sultana Khaya's stories, while extraordinary, is not unique. It is a part of a broader tapestry of resilience woven by Sahrawi women, youth, and veterans, and the human rights defenders. Each third of this tapestry needs your attention and support. Today, I ask all of you to stand with those movements. Let your solidarity be a bridge that connects us, a force that strengthens our resolve, and a beacon of hope for justice and freedom. Together, we can ensure that the struggle of the Sahrawi people are not in vain, and that the movement of liberation and justice in Western Sahara continue to thrive. And thank you sincerely.
I need a second to take this in. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Khatari, for your words, for your clarity, for the call, for the invitation. And we stand with you in full solidarity. The Palestinian flag and the Sahrawi flag are the same, as you know.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
we are in this. And
Yeah.
I just want to mention to everyone here, as you could see, there is a link that is available if you are interested in learning more and supporting the programs of Khatari in Western Sahara. Please open the link, put it in your tab, and after we finish the webinar, take a minute to fill the information so we could also begin to create momentum around this occupied territories that has been struggling for liberation for decades as well. The same situation in Palestine. So thank you for your words. Thank you. Thank you, brother. And then connected with international solidarity and activism in Western Sahara is our dear friend, Wind Kaufman. She is president of Karama Sahara and a longtime activist actually in both Palestine and Western Sahara. And Wind, I would like to invite you to share about your experiences, maybe more in Western Sahara, but also about your time in Palestine. And how do you see the role of international activism and solidarity in Western Sahara and the different programs that you are initiating and involved in? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's hard to know where to start, but I love Michael Beer the other day told me that I might be the only person on the globe who's been deported from both Palestine and Western Sahara. I started my solidarity work in Palestine in 2001. I think I was on one of the very first ISM trips, and that's where I met Huwaida. You know, you say I'm a longtime activist in Palestine and Western Sahara. Actually, I had never heard of Western Sahara until about maybe 4 years ago. And I think that that's the problem with a lot of people. I mean, even people I know that are very involved in Palestine and internationalism, I talk about Western Sahara, they don't know what's going on. Khatari mentioned it is the last colony in Africa, and I would say probably one of the least known conflict zones, you know, what people know about it. But there's a few other things I want to mention about it. It is the best place on Earth for stargazing because it has the least light pollution. It has the longest wall occupying wall after the Great Wall of China in the whole world. It's got the longest conveyor belt in the world that steals their phosphates that was built by Morocco. And it is the most densely landmined place on Earth. So there's a lot of interesting, striking facts about Western Sahara. It's one of the 3 places in the world where the principle of acquiring territory by force is being violated, because Morocco, following in the footsteps of settler colonialism, claims to annex Western Sahara and is imposing a brutal occupation with egregious human rights violations. So in some ways, it's very similar to Palestine. It's a settler colonialist project with egregious human rights abuses, which is really there just to claim land and resources, much like Putin's invasion and claims to annex territory in Ukraine, which so much of the world, at least the Western world, is aware of and condemns. So I want to talk about visiting Western Sahara because I tried, sorry, I'm all over the place, but I was first introduced to Western Sahara by my friend Lauren Peters, who's in my affinity group, who also spent a lot of time in Palestine as UCP, Protective Presence. But he introduced me to Michael Beer, who at the time was convening a project to break the siege of Sultana Khaya's home. She and her sister and her mother were being basically incarcerated in their own home. They couldn't leave. The soldiers, the Moroccan agents would periodically come in and rape them and abuse them and even inject them with unknown injections. So I got involved in that project to break that siege, and a small group of us actually succeeded. There were 4 UCPs that got into her home and were able to open the space in a way that had not been previously. So it was an amazing project. And I was going to be one of the UCP people to relieve the first round, and I did not make it because Moroccan agents basically, there were 3 of us that were going in, and they accosted us at the airport. They actually physically and sexually abused us a little bit and forced us on a plane and deported us. So I really want to go back, and so I with Michael and a few others have started a project called Just Visit Western Sahara, and I love the word just. There's a double entendre there. So we are starting. We have a website. It's in process. I'm a little hesitant to send you to it right now, but it's called justvisitwesternsahara.com, and it's going to encourage ethical tourism, tourism that is there for, to gain experience of a part of the world that not many people visit, but there's so much to draw you in. I've mentioned the stargazing, there's oases, there's so much to do there, and to meet the amazing, resilient people. And so many of those leaders are women, like Sultana Khaya. When you go, of course, you would want to make sure that you interact mostly with Sahrawi businesses, not Moroccan, and stay tuned. We will be getting the website up with a lot of helpful information, and I'm hoping to go there myself. I hope many people will take advantage of this because it really is a beautiful place with beautiful people. Sammy, you're muted.
Yeah, thank you, Wen, for these words. And I'll just say again that the form that you could fill up will be able to connect you and send you the website when it's ready, when it's done. And we want to really encourage this. And this goes back to the point that Mel was saying earlier. UCP comes in many shapes and forms. There is the direct action, there is solidarity, there is accompaniment, and there's just being there, visiting and supporting the local community, having this what you called ethical tourism is very important. When do you think you'll launch the first group, the first trip to Western Sahara with this program?
Good question.
When do you hope, at least when you hope to do it?
We haven't talked about timelines. We've really just reconvened the project again after some hiatus. After October 7th, many of us were just focused on what was going on in Palestine. But hopefully within the next couple months.
That's great.
That's all
Well,
I can say.
good. Thank you. Yeah. So again, encourage people to register so we could be in touch with you on this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our final guest speaker for today, Daniel Roth. He is the executive director of the Center for Jewish Nonviolence. Daniel, you've had several delegations just in the last few months come to Palestine. And I just want to ask you if you could also share, again, to bring all of this into like a closing, challenges, opportunities, being part of the Jewish community as well. What does it mean? What does it feel that now you are facing also backlash in your presence here from the Israeli government, settlers, and so on? So if you could, yeah, join us and share a little bit on that.
Absolutely. And just tell me if you can't hear me.
You're good.
Hi, as mentioned, I'm Daniel with the Center for Jewish Nonviolence. And also, first of all, thank you, Nonviolence International, for organizing the space for all of us to listen and learn together. And thanks for supporting CJNV for so many years. Maybe I'll explain a little bit about what CJNV is, and as part of that, try to answer some of those questions. I've been an activist for most of my life. I'm in Toronto right now, but I've been based in Israel, Palestine for a decade and a half doing this work. In brief, the Center for Jewish Nonviolence brings Jewish activists from around the world to join in Palestinian-led co-resistance on the ground in Israel, Palestine, primarily in the West Bank. And we've been doing this work for about 10 years. It all started with a question. Ilana Sumka, who started the Center for Jewish Nonviolence, asked a longtime friend and partner, a Palestinian farmer in the Bethlehem area, who had more than 1,000 fruit trees cut down by the Israeli army. Ilana asked, how can we help? And the answer was, let's organize a group of Jewish activists to come replant these trees with me. Dawood, that farmer, saw the power in that kind of co-resistance. And so our work over all of these years has been rooted in that core question, how can we help, ever since. So the way this looks, we organize in a few different ways on the ground. Just a few weeks ago, as Sammy mentioned, we had about a dozen activists in the village of Borin in the north of the West Bank for about 3 weeks joining in the olive harvest there. Our partnership in that community is relatively new. And we were harvesting with farmers from Borin and from that whole area. And the single worst settler attack I personally was in or experienced was in that village or near that village, an attack from an outpost sitting on a hilltop above Borin. And so we were really ready for heavy violence, but it was actually more quiet than usual in the fields. There were army raids, settlers stealing olives and attacking, as they often do, but we were actually able to, that was happening in the village and around the village, we were actually able to harvest an enormous amount of olives over long days in those groves with the families, and also form some really tight bonds over those 3 weeks. So that's one major project. Two, since 2021, we've been organizing a 3-month presence during the shepherding season in Masafra Yatta, so the South Hebron Hills of the West Bank. Usually a little under 10 activists gather and live in 3 villages in that area and accompany shepherds and document and deter violence and home demolitions, and also become a part of the vibrant activist network in that area. You've already mentioned Masafra Yatta. You've heard it mentioned already here, and there is really a vibrant network there of people doing this kind of work. Our longest term partnerships are in that area, and the sustained solidarity presence that we've been a part of there is, in my humble opinion, really beautiful. And an example of what co-resistance looks like. There's deep, deep friendships and partnerships. This is a project we call Hinenu, which means we are here in Hebrew. And then most often over our decade of existence, we've been running delegations just about every year for anywhere between 40 and 130 people to arrive as part for a shorter period that's always rooted in direct action, whether it's replanting trees, reclaiming land, reopening a road that settlers shut down with boulders, or in 2023, shutting down a highway from the West Bank into Jerusalem so that we slowed down Jerusalem Day, which is this massive fascist march that marches through the city annually. Throughout all of this, we're also trying to move resources to support those partner communities. We're currently raising funds for an agricultural cooperative that we've been working with in the village of Borin. And we're also importantly, I think, supporting our community of alumni and partners around the world. So we're trying to organize spaces like this to learn together and stay connected to the movement community, stay connected to movement groups wherever our people are around the world, so we can help people get connected to those movement spaces so they can tell their stories around the world, but also continue the work wherever they are. And also, I think we may have an example of this on this call, actually, but we invite activists who join us in our on the ground work to lead future work on the ground. And we're really trying to foster leadership in that way. Someone was on the call, or may still be, who was part of that Hinenu project in the spring. So for 3 months in Masafer Yatta, who came and led the olive harvest project just a few weeks ago. In all of our work, we're aiming to leverage the Jewish privilege that most of us carry. So we're doing that in the nonviolent co-resistance that we take part in, deterring violence, documenting violence, de-arresting when that's called for, changing hearts and minds in our communities around the world, raising funds, and also leveraging that privilege to get in and out of the country and various spaces. That's one of the ways in which we can sort of take that privilege and use it to help the movement. The last 14 months have been devastating in so many ways. And in the Jewish community in particular, the polarization that already existed has really gone into overdrive. We've seen a major influx in applications to join our project, I think because of that. So like double and sometimes triple the number of applications. But I think importantly, that hasn't necessarily translated into massively different numbers on the ground in our work. And that's mainly because of the risk of doing this on the ground work. And we do a lot of work to really communicate what those risks are: arrest or deportation or injury or even death. And we want to make sure that that's really clear for people coming into this work, because I think it's actually a good thing that people reflect even after applying for this kind of project and opt for other directions when they decide that that's what's right for them. There are, as I think we all know, a multitude of ways for all of us to be in this movement. And if the work we're doing on the ground isn't the specific right thing for a particular person in a particular moment, that's okay and good. We see our work as CJNV is connected to a larger movement tapestry. And we see that as an important part of sort of our organizing principles. And we're aiming really to be helpful in bringing people into that larger movement through all of these actions that I just described. And I think importantly, keeping all of us here for the long haul so that we can win the just future that we're organizing for.
Daniel, thank you. Thank you so much for that summary and for the call as well. I'm going to kind of put our speakers on the spot and just open up the space for them to speak to what was said, to respond to what was said. I don't think we have much time for questions from our audience, but if there are some, we could try to address them. But yeah, if Mil, Mahmoud, Huwaida, Wind, Khatiri, and Daniel, like if you have responses to what was said by others, what are common lines, what are challenges that you've heard, please, I would love to hear from you. I saw Mill write a lot during the session.
Yes, I'm a compulsive note taker. One thing that I'd like to add is that we have seen a new form of UCP grow up over the last couple of years, and that's taking place on social media. And I want to be cautious about this because it doesn't replace the work on the ground. It can only augment that work. But I think in terms of the work around El Makur and saving the resisting the settler takeover of the land there, the people on the ground have been able to activate people internationally. So people around the world are seeing in real time the violence that the settlers and the IDF are foisting on the people who are resisting the takeover. And that has had an impact on both reducing violence, and now the settlers are moving things off the land. They just today, for example, moved their caravan off the land. And so this is an important part to integrate into our on-the-ground work, but not to supplant it.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Mahmoud, I see your mic opened.
Yeah, I just want to add on this is in a way with all what is happening, how we are going to grasp all our efforts to see a change that people can measure on the ground. Because that is very important. The more we are on the ground, the more we give hope to the people, the oppressed people generally, whether in Palestine or in Sahara or elsewhere. So we need to think beyond the actions in a way that how we are going to shake the power of the power holders and the decision makers to see a change on the ground. And I can tell you, like, in Palestine, numbers are crucial in order to change that. And CJNV are doing amazing job by sending all these volunteers to join Palestinians on the ground and to bring a model of peace building on the ground and unarmed civil protection to the people. But still we need to think beyond the actions, how we are going to make the change from the actions outside Palestine and inside Palestine. The argument now among volunteers, among activists, among UCPs, is the change coming from inside Palestine or from outside Palestine? So we need to think about that in order to improve the unarmed civil protection on the ground, in order to give kind of hope for people about a better future in such situation that they are living in when it comes to zero accountability and full impunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And then this is where joint partnership, even not just partnership, being in service to the local community plays a big role, because everything is led by the local communities. They know the situation, they have the vision, and solidarity is with them for what they want to achieve in their area. Thank you. Anyone else? Huwaida.
Yes, I have, I think, 3 quick points. The first one is I also wanted to express solidarity with the Sahrawi people. You know, it's Palestine has been kind of overwhelming and what the Palestinian people are living through. But I know that if we weren't a little bit more free, we would be there with you, so that we are there with you in in spirit, and may both of our peoples be free. I wanted to mention a couple things about going to Palestine. So I am with the International Solidarity Movement. The ISM has been working for over 20 years. We have, you can see our website that was posted, palsolidarity.org. And just to know that, there is a training program, there is support and solidarity. And so going with the ISM right now has been a lot of protective accompaniment. It was originally founded to support Palestinian nonviolent direct action. So there was a lot more kind of direct action at dismantling the physical manifestations of Israel's colonialism, whether they be checkpoints and roadblocks or these things. A lot of time now it's protective presence, but it is controlled by the community. So Palestinians on the ground kind of lead the work and their strategy together, but we are always following, or internationals are always following Palestinian leadership on the ground. There's also another, if you rather not, kind of go to engage in this kind of work, there's some other efforts were mentioned here. I just wanted to put out Eyewitness Palestine, another organization that I'm involved in that does great work. So you can look up Eyewitness Palestine if you'd like to go just kind of on a delegation. And going to Palestine, as much as you know, as many films and as much as you read, there's nothing like actually going there. And everyone I've known that has gone there has been just profoundly changed by the experience, not only seeing what you just can't believe is happening in the 21st century and the evil that is manifested in what Israel is doing, but also despite all of that, and despite the fact that everyone you will meet will have not known a day of freedom in their whole life, they have lived under this extremely oppressive system that intends to wipe them out. There's still an ability of Palestinians to be warm and welcoming and loving and insist on life and share whatever they have, what little they have with you. And that is something that is remarkable to me, and I think touches everybody that ends up going to Palestine. Last thing is, we talked a lot about just the practicalities of going there, protective presence, but when you go back to your home and you're advocating, of course, a lot is important to relay what you see, what you've seen and experienced. But in the broader context, I just want to warn against falling into this kind of two-state trap, because that's what we constantly hear, and that we have been for decades, that Palestinians have to negotiate for their freedom. They have to negotiate for their rights. And the United States and many countries always say that is, we don't want to do this because it's going to hurt the peace process. Look, we are, and if you listen to Francesca Albanese and others who are speaking about it and putting what's happening now, the genocide, in the context of settler colonialism that's been ongoing for 8 decades. And so we want to make sure to put it in that context and not fall into this trap about negotiating a two-state solution. The ICJ quite firmly said, unequivocally in its decision that was issued July 19th of this year, in that Palestinians deserve their rights now. It's not contingent on any kind of negotiations. Oslo peace process has no effect on it, and Palestinian freedom is not contingent on whatever restrictions and conditions that the occupier wants to put on it. So just a note about when you're advocating. Thank you.
Thank you, Hoida, for those words. Anyone else before we close? All right. So I just want to point out again, the Google Doc is available for you to fill and to sign in, so you could get more information on the initiatives that are taking place in Western Sahara. And I just want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for your commitment to nonviolence. Thank you for the work you're doing as speakers and as listeners in this community gathering. The world is definitely in a crisis, and we need those, as Daniel said, those with privilege to step up and use the force of nonviolence to intervene in occupation, to intervene to stop genocide, to intervene to support human rights, to intervene to even support environmental abuse that continues to take place, and to support local leaders globally. Please get involved in these initiatives. All are important and vital during these times. Finally, I would love to ask you to consider becoming a monthly supporter of Nonviolence International, and to also support our partners such as CJNV, the Freedom Flotilla, ISM, and our CPU in Palestine initiative. All are very important. A recording of this webinar will be posted on our YouTube channel soon, so please follow us there. And also information will be available on Twitter and or X and Facebook. Maybe we need to start boycotting X now. What do you guys think? I think that's something we really should be looking into. Nonviolence International is committed to engaging and promoting the global nonviolent movement, so we will continue such webinars to take place. And at the end, thank you for the staff and volunteers of Nonviolence International for being in the space. Thank you, our speakers again. We wish for all of us to meet in better days, in better places, where we all are able to share together the song of freedom and justice and liberty for all. Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful remaining of your day. Thank you, everyone.